Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trenchcoat featuring the Minstrel's Ballad, Sphene's Burden.
Sphene! Listen to me!
Oh god. Someone get her a Red Bull or something. I've heard NPR radio listeners with more energy than that.
Sphene! Listen to me!
Okay, yep, much better. For the marker dance this fight, you're going to need light party stacks, and reasonably you'll need these static meteor spots. I like to put the melees north, range south, and supports hugging the inside of their respective sides, but do whatever makes your heart smile and make sure that you're all on the same page. Everything else is fair game, free-for-all. Would not want to be the black mage that has to navigate this mechanical hellhole. You also don't need waymarks at all after this because they do not help you with basically anything, so in a lot of my footage you'll see them in this semicircle pattern because much like a vegan, we couldn't handle our proteins. First up, the boss is going to do this spatial rend and Roar of Time combo. She'll mark a third of the arena and rend the space inside of it, and then after some time she'll roar at the two healers with this massive purple Light Party beam. Light Party 1 should hang as far left as they can, Light Party 2 should hang as far right as they can, and then they should not run away from their healers after the conals go off. After the first laser is fired, we'll do this pattern 2 more times where each side of the arena is going to have its chance to get hit, so plan accordingly. The boss will then cast a raid wide called Virtual Shift. Go as far out as you can and get yoinked back to the center of the arena where you'll enter into a tropical summer storm. We'll just call this the British summer phase since there's no obvious source of sunlight in this otherwise overcast and dreary landscape. Now there's 2 ways to do this phase, and one of them makes you boring while the other is the most fun I've had since rescuing someone off the Don Meg Bridge. I'm sure that the boring way is what's going to be adopted and pushed by try-hard party finder samurais who are still clinging to the hope that they'll one day outdamage our Pictomancer overlords, so that's what I'm going to go over first. But don't worry, the fun is coming. Split up into your light party groups again on this hourglass-shaped platform where light party 1 will hide up in the northwest diagonal, and light party 2 will hide on the southeast diagonal. The healers will once again become the target of a pretty divisive attack, while they'll leave this wind puddle that will jettison you up into Narnia if you touch it. Drop your puddles and then group up middle for a chains mechanic, and then DPS should run northeast while the supports run southwest to break the chains. While you do this, Sphene is going to telegraph either a left-right fisting or a right-left fisting, and you should politely decline that cougar's invitation by playing jump rope with the center of the arena along the horizontal nearest to you. I guess despite Sphene probably being some number of centuries old, it feels weird to call her the cougar when Hrothgal Wuklamad is sitting right there at the bus stop, not helping us with this fight. You'll also notice that you have this little green buddy and an aggressive red or green debuff on your bar showing you the direction that you're about to be shoved 2 seconds after the half-room cleaves have gone out. Give yourself enough of a runway to slide along the horizontal without being sent careening off of the edge. Toss a few more uninterrupted GCDs at her and then you'll be brought back to the main arena. Okay, so that was the boring way. Here's the cliff notes on Bumper Car Wind Strat. Enter into the summer phase and take your wind puddles past the diagonals to the ends of your horizontals. Position them as close to the center of the line as you can, or else you might have a few problems later on. Head back to the center and deal with the chains like you did before, and now instead of staying in line with your horizontal, you should dodge the half-room cleaves from the center of the X. Then take note of which way you're about to be blown, and if you're getting blown west, you should run north, while anyone being blown east would go south. Line yourself up at the end of your horizontal, only to be blown into the wind puddle from before, and then be spit right back out to where you were originally standing. At least if you aimed it right. No matter which way you do the British summer phase, your tanks will get 2 busters that you can either invuln or pass during the cast of, and then everyone should spread out for some protean lasers. Again, we use the markers here, but so long as you all spread out, it shouldn't be too terrible. And after everyone's laser has gone off, the boss will recast all 8 lasers at the same time, so make sure that you wriggle between the metaphorical toes lest you get sphened. Then you'll have 2 more raid wides to heal through before you get pulled past the summer and into autumn. Autumn phase, or more aptly fall, will split you up into 2 groups of 4 that don't matter in the slightest. Each of these 1-bedroom platforms will get a purple elevator which you should all ride up into the spacious penthouse that Sphene has frankly forgotten to render any of the surfaces for. You'll group up into the center and to avoid half-room cleaves like the last phase, but that's going to be the least of your concerns. See, while you had your back turned for 0.5 seconds, both of your apartments grew explosive termite infestations. With the housing market in shambles, there's absolutely no way you'll get a return on your investment unless you deal with them immediately. Dodge the half-room cleaves and then sprint your way to the elevator according to the rock spots you did in the marker dance. Usually light party 1 left and everyone else right. Rush down the elevator shafts to stand on your designated termite hole, which if your apartment is the 1 cleaved second, is going to be an unbelievably close timing for an extreme level fight. 1 missed termite hole is just going to hurt, but missing more than 1 is definitely going to have some adverse effects on your health and property value. You'll then have to continue to stave off 2 more termite holes while each side gets one of these tethers and an AoE bigger than a millennial's budget for avocado toast. and that's totally why they're not buying your houses. The tether players should run through the elevators and up to the front corners of the airspace without leaving the safety zone, which if your depth perception is as bad as mine is a challenge. The AoE holders will similarly rise up and just find somewhere to beat and not clip anyone who got left with another round of pest control duty. Stomp out the rest of the bugs until you get these green AoEs telling you it's time to get high and drop some rocks while stoned. The rock and stone portion of this phase will see you dropping 16 boulders in all, 8 of which should end up on this platform in a 2x2 configuration so that you don't take the upper or lowercase L, and the other 8 are going to be launched off of the side of the map and probably be used by some marine admiral to fight some rubber kid. And this is where that whole fall joke finally sees its payoff. I recommend dropping the rocks onto the platform first in case you fuck up, but truly it's dealer's choice. Once all the rocks are in position, hop back down the elevators and the boss is going to start throwing all of the star quartz that somehow keeps popping up on her retainers at you. Hide behind each rock in sequence as they're destroyed, and if any rocks are still standing when you, presumably, are not, then the rest of your team is going to be following in your footsteps. Mid up for this World Shatter raid wide, take another set of tank busters, and then it's time for a coronation. 8 drones are going to drop into the arena and tether themselves each to a player, forcing them to drag around these wildly oversized bobsleds like Alaskan Huskies. Everyone is also going to get a pink AoE bigger than the loan that you'd need to take out for a single semester of college tuition. Face the drone you're tethered to and note where it sits in the triangular headboard looking thing. If you are the right drone, then you need to go right to the corner clockwise of your side. If you are the left drone, then you're left, standing in the middle of your sides so that you don't overlap with any of the other AoEs, and if everyone does this, then it just works. Continue to edge guard like a foxbane who wasn't allowed to have fun as a kid, and as soon as everything explodes, you want to group back up in the middle for some baited puddles. Once again, Light Party 1 will run west and Light Party 2 will run east, and then you'll split melee north and range south. Either all the supports or all the DPS will get flares and should stay close-ish to their corners while the other group gets a stack marker to be taken at the center. There's also these red flamin' hot Doritos that everyone will get, and because there isn't enough time to get everyone to the center, you'll have to run back to meet your corner partner halfway to partake of the post-time munchies. You can also just not do this mechanic. Following that will be an arena-wide knockback from the north, but you can and should knockback mitigation your way through. Pop even more mitigation and hold on to your bitcoins because we're going from that rockin' autumn into a crypto winter. Hold up on this tiny sliver of a central platform until the winter winds movement mechanic comes to force you to run laps like it's the Fitness Gram Pacer test so that you don't get frozen. Along with these winter winds, you'll get these 4 bridges that if one person steps on, they'll crack, and if 2 people step on them, they'll shatter faster than you can regret hitting your pot window. 8 icicles will appear in the arena, and the 4 in the south will immediately tether to either all of the DPS or all of the supports. These tethers have to run far to the north and not get launched like a railgun, so they should cross the ice bridges first, while the other players who got tethered to the east and west icicles will have much more leeway in the timing to avoid an ice pick lobotomy. There are plenty of strategies to determine which bridge you should use to make sure that everyone gets over in a timely manner, but I suggest the don't die forehead strat, where players tethered to the outer south icicle take the north bridge, the inner south icicles take the south bridge, and in the second set go to the bridge directly across from the icicle that they're tethered to. Stretch your tethers, and then as soon as the icicles are launched, Sphene is going to telegraph another fisting, and if you're on the side getting hit first, then you better fucking book it across your ice bridges because mommy is not going to wait for you. Dodge the half-room cleaves into another freezing mechanic, and then we'll see a mechanic from another recent fight, and for those of you in the Savage game, it rhymes with straining yachts. The MTDT strategy from that aforementioned fight comes into play where 2 tethers will come out and the melee should take each of them off to Narnia because of how big they're about to get, while everyone else suffers through a line stack in the center. The intended strat is to pass off the tethers to every person in the party, but so long as the tanks take the north ice bridges and the melees take the south ice bridges, the tethers will pass so the tanks can kitchen sink their first tethers and then invuln through the following 2. The line stack also always passes off to a tethered player, so one of your tanks will have to be extra invulned, but that's what the benediction button is for. Do a bit more damage and then the stage transitions back to normal and the boss starts to short circuit as you near the end of her health bar. Deal with tank busters, raid-wise, and half-room cleaves, and then she'll fall off the stage. But even after all of that, it's still not over. Because after a British summer, a rockin' fall, and a crypto winter, it's time to spring a whole nother health bar and phase of mechanics onto you. Sphene took all of the "there are lines on the floor" memes and decided to try and rattle your faith in their legitimacy. There are in fact lines on the floor, in 2 colors that are reminiscent of the platform shapes from earlier phases. But only one set of them is actually going to be real. Take a look into the psychedelic kaleidoscope skybox, which will either be flushing like an American toilet or an Australian one. Whichever way the acid trip rotates will drag one of these platforms suspended on the sides to be underneath you, and anyone who gets swept off their feet by her honeyed words is going to plummet into oblivion like those rock phase meteors. You also can't necessarily Dorito this because everyone has an AoE on them that does barely tickle you unless you get Venn diagrammed with someone else. There's time to move, but only if you actually utilize it. Spread out on the confines of the incoming platform, noting that the ice bridges from the ice phase still function like the ice bridges from the ice phase and will break if 2 or more of you end up landing on them. And then prepare for another rotation with even less real estate to pre-position in, especially if you got the stupid yellow platforms first. The arena then goes back to normal, where you'll get some standard fare exaflares leading into 2 tank buster towers followed by more raid wides and party line stack hits than tiles in a mahjong hand. Heal and mitigate your way through all of that, the boss will leap back, and then you get 2 more of the washing machine rotator floors, which leads into an enrage cast. But if you manage to burn through her whole secondary health bar, then congrats! You've completed Sphene's burden. She truly was a killer queen. Gunpowder, Euphrosyne, dynamite, and many, many laser beams. Go watch a real guide.